Good afternoon, everyone. It's 4:03 on December 3rd, 2020. We are opening Lake County Schools LCEA bargaining session. We'll begin by taking roll for the district. Chad Farnsworth.
Michelle Hoppenstad.
Linda Shepherd Miller.
Jake Stein.
And that's what we got for team members. Our other two fellows here are just spectating.
Go to the audience. Okay. All right. For LCEA, I'm Stuart Clapp.
Melissa Newman, LCEA.
Tracy Wood, LCEA.
Kirsten Olafson. Kathy Smith is here.
Nicole Roll is here.
All right.
All right. Had a lot going on that I had some updates, and then, there's some other things I'm sure you guys have you want to talk about. Stuart, if you want to open, that's fine. Or if not, we can
go ahead
and click on. Okay, let me, I'll share my screen just with a. Can you guys see that agenda? Oh, why is this thing acting funny? Hang on. There's my error. Can you guys see the agenda on the screen? I'll blow it up a little bit here.
Okay, I can see it, but yeah, if you can blow it up, that'd be great.
I can see it.
First, as a result of our teacher salary increase allocation MOU that was ratified and approved, that inherently creates a new salary schedule for placement of new employees that come in beyond that ratification date. So I had a sample of that I wanted to show you guys. Yesterday we had an insurance committee meeting. I figure we can both chip in on that and give a little update. We did have a board executive session on Monday, and I'd like to discuss that a little bit. I have a proposal with a few items on it, and then we've still got the ever going conversation of our open contract and our plans to move forward. So is it okay if I show you the updated salary placement schedule? You guys okay with that?
Sure, I think so.
And it's really a similar iteration of what we've had in the past. I just moved some stuff around for formatting purposes. As you see, the 0 through 12 is where we moved up through for the beginning teacher salary, where that got us from upping that minimum entry salary. And then these would apply as applicable and documented years of experience people bring in on the scale. And then on the bottom, I just moved the stuff that used to be on the side, and it explains the advanced degree differentials and quotes the statute of the restriction to the area of certification. And then the ones that kick in a little later once assignments have settled in, which is the additional advanced degree that's unique to our district. Usually this rests in the contract and as a document to reference, but now that we've got people that are coming on board every week, we need to go ahead and post something to the website so there's a reference there. So that's one I want to go ahead and show you guys this. and the basically what you're looking at, depending on the what the legislature decides to do next year, where they continue on that path of pushing for that minimum of 47.5. Obviously, this will be impacted again, or we hope that they continue to fund at least what they did for this year, and we'll see what happens. But this will be our current placement schedule.
Quick question.
Okay.
Are we paying out the 44,750 for the new teachers? Are we paying on this even though the state hasn't released the money?
The state has released the funds for it.
Okay, we've received it then.
Yeah, it's
Okay.
coming. Yeah.
Okay, so we are paying these amounts then.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
We had the next report was due December 1st on documentation to DOE, so that was submitted successfully. We're still waiting on a few things from non-conversion charter schools for them to get some stuff over, but that doesn't have much bearing on us. It's just cleanup that will help them get done with DOE. And then in August, there'll be another kind of finalized report. And this is the information basically, I think they assumed all districts will be done by now, which we know they're not. And these new reports, I think, are for the legislature's purpose. So they're looking at those probably to see what the results are prior to session. So if this looks okay, we'll have it online for people to reference if you guys are all right with that.
So can I ask a quick question?
Sure.
So I see on the line underneath the salary box about the advanced degree. How about the people that were grandfathered in before that? Is that reflected anywhere?
That's within the statute. With the quote, that's why we quoted the statute. Cramming any more verbiage on here was a little difficult, but if you reference that statute, it talks about the folks that were grandfathered in.
Okay, so I just want to make sure that was clear.
Mm-hmm. And anybody, I mean, really anybody that uses this moving forward, that they would be looking for where they would be. It wouldn't be our folks that, and we still have our old salary schedules for historical purposes on the website also.
And just for clarification, there would only be the two then. There would be the one grandfather and then this new placement schedule.
We have all of them listed, but this would be the active schedule that actually has bearing. All of the rest of them are more like your placement schedule for reference of when you froze, when the law kicked in. You had your grandfather, and then there's a weird in between one that only covers, I think, 15, 16.
Yeah,
And then you have the one that we were currently under until this one.
right. But wouldn't the 15, 16 one then be taken care of by this new one?
I think it takes care of a lot of them, but it doesn't take care of all of them.
Oh.
So we haven't dug that deep into. Of course, we're looking at, okay, at what point in time will they become irrelevant? Because we had some of those same thoughts, but it is still relevant for some people to reference. I can tell you that the auditors do not like the fact we have that 15-16 one. They haven't.
But it's confusing to a lot of people is why I was asking. Mm-hmm. So it's weird.
It probably that probably should not have been the route that was taken at that time. But I think it was in that weird period where everybody was adjusting to pay for performance and the dust hadn't settled on all that yet. But it is what it is. And
I don't know, before I'd have to look at your updated salary placement and look at some actuals, and does that reflect the percentage increases? Because I'm thinking I need to make sure that matches what's really happening
So
currently.
I'm not real clear on what you're, so I'll tell you this, we've redesigned the salary summary report for employees that they can access. And we have redesigned it to reflect what happened to their salary with the onset of the teacher salary increase allocation. And it's the same type deal where if you mouse over the areas, it gives a more in-depth explanation on a pop-up. So HR and BJ Games did a really good job of redesigning that. So that is definitely where I would direct your employees. They right after, while we were working on this and right after it ratified, people were diving on there to look, but we could not redesign that and work on that report and have it active at the same time while we were processing and getting everything done. Because I had board members asking for the same thing. And I said, just give us about a week and a half. We'll have it all tuned up and it'll be clear and it won't be as confusing. So we do have that as an active tool now, and it's really good.
So, okay, but so does that reflect the percentage increases that we talked about as well?
No, you're talking about this schedule we just looked at?
Yeah.
No, because and that's what it's funny, because it's like the state didn't even understand. You know, once they created a pay for performance system, they in essence created hundreds, depending on how big your district is, hundreds of salary schedules. Because at that point, everyone is on their own particular salary schedule. Because one year you might have an effective amount, one year you might have highly effective, next year you might have effective. And in essence, you're going to be on a different scale from somebody that was highly effective all 3 years if you're getting amounts applied each of those 3 years. So the base salaries are all over the place. So you can no longer have a salary schedule. You have to have a salary placement schedule. So whenever I had to send in on the template for DOE on the first, they had one page with a section for like 30 steps in it and I was like, well, you couldn't even adapt the sheet. So I wound up sending 10 copies of that report to cover. So you can guesstimate around, I think there were 30 to 35 spaces on it. So you can get it. We're probably about 300 different salary steps that people are on right now. And that's only going to continue to grow under the current. Does that make sense?
That makes sense, but we had, using the 20% money, one level got a 1.5%, one level got a 2%. Is that figured into this as well?
It's not on this sheet. This is representative of where somebody would start on their salary. It's not representative of where they're currently at. That's why from an individual, because there's so many different circumstances from an individual standpoint, you would have to go to your salary summary sheet to look at the individual. Because on top of, they also changed with the statute on top of the other twist that we had to work out on the salary summary report for the individual employees was that your advanced degree supplement had to be separated out as to show your base salary as it applies. So we redesigned, that was part of the redesign on the report, so people could understand clearly what each bucket and piece was in their salary.
So may I ask, basically then you took 0 through 12, put the 44,750 now, and I'm assuming then 13 through 25 stayed the same from the other placement schedule that we had.
Yeah, like say if you were somebody came in at step 22, but you came in a year ago, and then we ratified if they were at that 51.5, their salary is now 2% higher than that 51.5 there. But it doesn't reflect on this because this is just a placement schedule.
Correct. And that's why I was asking, I couldn't find my, the placement schedule, but I just assumed that what was on the other placement schedule, the original one, all you did was update the 0 through 12, correct?
Yes. None of those other numbers are different.
Right.
Okay. What else you got?
All right. Yesterday we had our insurance committee that Kathy and Stewart are part of that committee. And we took a look at Josh, who is our consultant, kind of presented us an update of how our insurance was looking. And the good news is we've done well. And, you know, obviously there's some stipulations around that. I think a lot of it was our claims really dipped for about 3 months when COVID was really kicking off. And I think everybody thought, oh, everybody's gonna get sick and run to the doctor. Well, it actually had the opposite impact, and everybody got sick and nobody wanted to go to the doctor, or not many people got as sick as they thought. But the idea of going into the doctor where sick people might be, I think might have deterred them also. So that allowed us to build up that reserve that we've been trying to get built up of the 60 days in our insurance fund. It allowed us to build that up a lot quicker. So we're sitting at a really good standpoint as far as insurance goes. Now, I think what they indicated yesterday, and Stuart and Kathy, you chime in whenever, what they indicated yesterday is that, you know, we'll probably start to see some normal usage and claims kick back in. And in my mind, I was like, that's probably logical. I don't know that it'll come as quick as what we think, but I could see in a couple months where people are starting to hit those normal claims again. And then you might have some that start edging that up a little bit from things that they deferred throughout that time. But overall, we're looking pretty good.
Yes, thank you for sending the actuarial report. And so this shows that we've met our 60-day threshold.
Yeah, we're actually over the 60-day threshold at this point. So that's great. Where it was a little confusing yesterday is where they were saying, okay, this is what we built up, but then that was only for half the year. So I need to get a little bit more clarification, understanding on that. I got the reports probably this afternoon about the same time you did. So I need to dive a little bit deeper on them following yesterday evening's insurance committee meeting and today when I got the report. So I'm building some more questions, and as I'm sure you guys will too after you review that documentation. Also in some of that, I also went and looked at the report from the Auditor General, and it talks about, you know, our 60-day balance and how we've managed things in the past and things of that nature. So I think we didn't dive real deep into that yesterday at the insurance committee meeting because it's mainly on insurance, but I think we were just in the nick of time of getting our insurance fund corrected.
Now, let me ask a question on that. Maybe you can help, or maybe we'll need to check with Josh.
Okay.
For the 60-day reserve, that does not necessarily have to be a separate fund. It can be part of your general fund balance, correct?
As far as outside of the insurance fund, or as the fund balance within the insurance fund?
Now, I'm talking about the general fund balance for the county.
I mean, I think you've got an insurance fund and a fund balance that you're supposed to keep
Would just be
there.
restricted funds within the general fund balance, would it not?
As far as how the accounting looks in the system, I can't really speak to. I can ask those questions, but those aren't really Josh questions. Those are more Scott questions. But part of what the old practice was that the auditors did not care for is you could write a letter and say, oh, we've got enough fund balance to cover the 60 days, and we'll be fine. And that was the practice that had happened here until that wasn't true anymore. And then once our general fund balance for the district was not large enough to cover those 60 days, then you can't write that letter in good faith anymore. And in essence, you're not meeting the letter of the law. And that's why that's why rather than carrying a zero balance in our insurance reserve fund, we started funding it and up the contribution from the district to get it funded properly. And we had scheduled for it to take 2 years to get to the point of the 60 days. And lo and behold, here comes COVID that probably pushed it up now to a point higher than 60 days. And as we discussed in the insurance yesterday, that's great, but we still got a lot of undefined times coming up. And hopefully we can continue on a good path like this, but I don't think it's going to accelerate like it has. And who knows? You guys watch the news. Who knows what's going to happen there? But I can tell you from a general practice, you don't want to be, once you've got your 60-day fund balance in your insurance fund, that's great. You don't want to be digging into that to cover funds that you need
No.
for your district. Yeah. So like Ms. Cronin mentioned yesterday, okay, we stay on this path. She recommended we go back and take a look at some of the plan design changes that we made last time around and see if there's any plan design changes that we could have to positively impact all employees.
Because wasn't the plan design changes passed as a temporary measure?
No, I don't recall anybody mentioning as a temporary measure. I think anytime
In order to accumulate funds for the fund balance for insurance.
No, and I've heard you state that quite a few times now, and we keep telling you the same thing. And it's, you don't make, I mean, if you've watched any or been part of any insurance for a decent amount of time, you see usually your insurance trend and is basically the increase that happens with your insurance plans as you go through the years. And you try to keep up with trend to make sure that you've got a healthy plan that can cover trend. And there's two ways to try and meet trend, and that's either you adjust the plans that in a way that impacts your claims, because claims drive increases, or you increase contributions either from the employees or the district or both in order to keep up with trend. So in essence, it's a cost avoidance anytime you adjust your plans in an insurance program. It's not something that you would do for savings, because it's actually it's an action that you're not going to see an impact from that action until you see the activity in the plans after a certain period of time. I mean, I was optimistic. I mean, I think I like Josh said yesterday, I'm not sure how you measure the impact of those plan design changes yet, just because it's been so wonky and weird the last year. But, and, it does look like some of the prescription changes we made are, I'll be interested to see when he comes back to us how that lays against once the rebates are considered. So I think those are questions we need to take back whenever we meet as a committee again. Is okay, what's some update on that pharmaceutical movement that we made? Because I think that was some of the areas we were looking for to really help us out. So you guys have anything else on insurance?
So the recommendation is going to be no change in insurance coverage and rates.
That is the recommendation. That is the recommendation from the committee to the board, and then the board would board approve that like they usually do the new rates. And I've got some additional information on that as we get to our proposal.
So all right, no changes, but then you said new rates. So
No, I'm saying anytime year in, year out, the board approves if there's any changes or new rates. And regardless, they'll approve a document that says no changes, and it'll show the same premiums and things like that. So the recommendation of the board is no change in contribution to the fund.
go ahead, then.
Okay. Well, we had an executive session on Monday. I wanted to, and in that executive session, we did spend a little bit more time, of course, reviewing you guys' proposal from last time or two sessions ago, and we discussed they had an interest in this executive session about the amounts that were received from the teacher salary increase allocation. I
Yes,
think,
I have.
yeah, I think they've heard a lot, or perhaps a little or some from our folks that were kind of in that middle of the pack that did not get to the 2%. And they expressed some concerns over that. And then we talked a little bit about the insurance from a negotiating standpoint. So if that pretty much rolls into a proposal that I have for you guys today, if you're ready, I can go ahead and pull that up.
Kathy, I think so. Go ahead.
Okay. What you'll see at the top, close this, so make it a little bigger. What you see at the top, they expressed as a major concern is that we had folks, those people that received, we had approximately 920, 917 instructional employees that received less than a 2% raise.
Chad, is there any way you can make that a little bit bigger,
Yes.
please?
I apologize.
She can't see it with her.
Thanks.
All right, let's get it here. How's that? So basically, what they would like to propose is for the 917 roughly, that's an approximate number, to bring them up to where they would have a 2% following what was done with the SIA MOU that we approved. And that would bring those employees, instead of the 1% or the 1.5%, it would ensure at least anyone who didn't receive that bulk out of the 80% to get them to the new minimum. Anyone that was less than 2% to get there all the way up to the 51 people at the $51,000 mark would get a 2% instead of the 1% or 1.5%. And the additional cost for that is $420,000. And if you're, just so you guys know, it's basically they were very adamant that they felt like they wanted everyone to receive at least that 2%, especially after we've seen the other employee groups outside of the LCEA receive that 2%. And they looked at the fund balance. We've closed out the year around 5%, as you guys know, and that's where that money's at. They're making a conscious decision to dip below that 5% mark to make this offer.
Okay.
The next piece is prior to Monday was obviously before the insurance committee, but I prefaced with them and if there is no recommendation for increases or plan design changes at the insurance committee meeting, would you guys be okay with me offering no insurance premium or plan design increases to instructional employees? And they gave me the green light as long as that's how things came out of the insurance committee meeting. So that was successful in that. So we'd like to offer that. And then lastly, we've still got the MOU that we do every year that required by statute. And we have budgeted the amounts not to change from last year for our Title I. And that was all instructional, $500 for the 2021 school year. And then our usual 700 or the 750 amount, same as last year for the group that we established or that's been established and that we clarified a little bit on last year. So this is that bottom piece of language is the same language that we talked about last year. I just basically cut and pasted it out of the old MOU.
All right.
So that is our proposal for today. Let's see. Yeah,
Stuart, can we step away for a moment?
Yes, I believe that'd be a great idea. Thank you. So we're going to do a caucus here, if we may.
Okay. Okay, it's 5:02. We're returning from caucus. And the floor is yours, Mr. Klatt.
All right. I think that the proposal to bring everyone at least up 2%, I think is a good proposal. I think that is fair because we know teachers got primarily state money, but everyone else in the county got 2% of county money. So I think that's a good leveling situation, but I still think we have a situation where we have a lot of experienced, qualified, dedicated teachers. And I know we've talked about the differential for longevity, and maybe those amounts were too high, but I think we need to do something to reward the dedication and longevity of some of our teachers, because they're being asked more and more to help new teachers to do the extra, to go the extra mile, to coordinate and to help get our new teachers up to par. And if our goal is to be an A district, we need the quality that our experienced teachers bring to the table. So we need to do something to reward that. And maybe the initial proposal was a little too aggressive, but I think there are some things that we could do that would, the differential longevities still is a valid way to reward some of our teachers.
And I went through you guys' proposal and I stated the same thing, similar sentiment to them. I said, look, this is an idea that, you know, I definitely think we need to open our minds up to in the future. And I said the same thing. I said, I do think you guys' numbers were quite ambitious, and I think they know that. And we talked a little bit. I took them through kind of a history of, okay, here's where not many districts and attorneys and folks, when you try and pry on DOE for interpretations, were very open to some of these types of proposals in the past. I said, yeah, and I kind of took them down that road to where these have become more acceptable. And some districts have moved in this direction in some circumstances. I said, so I kind of educated them a little bit on this type of proposal that you guys have put forward. And I can tell you they're in agreement that, you know, they want to reward veteran teachers. I think based on where our fund balance is now, I think their priorities are placed on equity at this moment in time, because they know they can't, you know, as far as laying next to that teacher salary increase allocation that had so many strings attached to it on how we could spend that $7.2 million that the state allocated to us for teachers. That they felt like, again, kind of like, you know, some of the stuff we dealt with Best and Brightest, there was a small group that could possibly be left a little bit short, and they wanted to shore that up with this proposal. But I think moving forward, they would definitely be open to that type of proposal. But as far as from a economic stance and where we're at fiscally at this moment, I don't think they feel like they have the funds to go any further on it.
So what are some other ways?
I'm sorry, you cut out.
So what are some possible other ways? Let's brainstorm other ways to reward our experienced longevity dedicated teachers. Are there other things that we can do?
I'm open to suggestions. What you got?
I said, let's brainstorm some ideas.
All right, well, let that brainstorm. Let me hear what you got. Anybody in the room, I'm open ears.
And there you go.
I mean, you guys represent the teachers, so I kind of have to lean on you guys as experts from the perspective of the teachers, and that's not very helpful. So I need probably
a
little better than that.
We've talked about longevity differentials. We've talked about work conditions. I mean, those are really the only two major areas that we can look at.
I mean, that's
Money
compensation
and work conditions.
and work conditions. Okay, well, that's a little vague. And work conditions, I mean, I think you've got 3,000 instructional employees. So how do you improve work conditions for one group of folks that have been here longer, but not for another group? I guess I'm having trouble conceptually figuring out what you guys are looking for.
Well,
We're looking for teacher salaries to be put in the budget every year.
Okay, that's what we're back to money. So that's what I'm telling you guys. Out of now what will be below a 5% fund balance and some unknown circumstances coming up that could yield good or could yield bad. I'm not sure. we're not in position to make movement in that direction yet, which I think you guys, even with the longevity proposal that you guys put forward, that's a 1 year, thing. And I think you guys acknowledged coming in at $2.83 million was a little high. But even, I say if there was $1 million to throw at that, then it still would be for 1 year, and it would not be for really big amounts. And we're right back saying the same thing over and over again, year in, year out. That doesn't necessarily fix what you guys see as how things have changed since the laws changed from pay for performance, instead of steps.
Okay, I have a quick question for you. From my own knowledge, I understand that teacher salaries are based upon, please correct me if I'm wrong, based upon allocations per student per district, correct?
Yeah, the FEFP is funded.
That's where teacher
on
salaries
FT.
come from, is our allocations per student. Okay, well, right now, Lake County is funded 47th in the state. How do we go about increasing that? I mean, our population is so much more than 47th. We're spending $287,000 a year on a lobbyist. How long has it been since they've gotten our per student allocation raised?
Well, I think your per student is going to be across statewide. A lot of times, I can tell you, like a few years ago, our lobbyists pushed for compression and got us. I can't remember off the top of my head. It might have been about $1.5 million back out of the legislature, but then that was pulled back again the following year. Our lobbyists are more than just looking for money for teacher raises. It's also they got us our construction programs at Leesburg and Eustis. So there's different things that they do. I can't tell you. I'm not sure that's the adequate or the accurate number on what we pay our lobbyists. I'd have to double check that, but I know they do serve a lot of purpose.
It's line item 19911 and board expenses in the budget.
Okay.
So now with the explosion of new home construction in the county, am I correct in understanding that we are also dependent upon the county commissioners to help fund monies? Because you guys educated me about this. I know a lot of this new construction money has to go to the construction in building and schools. But am I also incorrect or correct in saying that they can also provide monies that can go towards teacher salaries?
No,
No, they cannot.
They
Okay.
cannot.
Okay.
The impact fees are construction, but what you can do is put forth a referendum for operational
Okay.
costs, and that takes a ballot initiative to get kind of like our safety referendum. You can put a referendum on the ballot towards operational expenses, and that could be used. And then that's tax dollars, more tax dollars coming locally to support.
And how can we
such
go about
as.
doing that? What is that process?
Well, we've researched that, and we were looking heavily at that about 1.5 years ago, and we talked a little bit with you guys about it. But the appetite that changed, we felt like, in the community, because that was about the time the governor said, "Hang on, everybody, I'm about to give a bunch of money for teacher salaries," and getting that ballot initiative through would have been very, very difficult, especially well, I guess that might have gone on a primary ballot, but it would have been difficult to get through with the governor stating that, and then just recently handing. We might not like the strings that were attached to it, but all people will see is the $7.2 million that went to Lake County teachers.
Mm-hmm. Okay, cool. Thanks. Appreciate it.
Now, the BSA increase we got last year that we chose to use for our fund balance for healthcare, we still get that same amount of increase this year, do we not?
Well, if your base, yeah, your increase in base funding, and it goes to, that contributes to several different, it also, there's a certain portion of that is covering your additional students that have come into the district, and then that leaves amount per student that's additional, and that covers increased costs in other areas. And then you look at this year, we got a whole nother wonderful increase in FRS that cost us $2.5 million. That was new to us. And chances are there's probably going to be another similar increase to FRS that the district has to shoulder again next year. I would predict at a similar rate. So you've got things like that that tend to eat up your additional funds. If you, all in all, you look at, Scott can show you graphically where we gain about 1% in funding annually. And if you go above, anything you go above that, you're basically dipping into your reserve fund balance. And that's how your fund balance starts to dip, and where we've had trouble in the past here in Lake.
So how do we get our raises put in the importance piles like everything else?
Well, I think what you have to look at is the important pile, and the most important pile is 80% of the budget, which funds your entire salary. So that is the most important pile, and making sure that everyone has a job and everyone can receive their salary to begin with. That's the important pile, and then everything on top of that goes to fund necessary things to complete our tasks. So if you look at increases, if we can get, anytime we can increase our fund balance, that's what's available to grab out of raises. So once you create your budget off of the money that you can spend on the things that you need to spend it on for that year, and then what you have left over is your fund balance. And that's where you look at for the money that's free to be able to spend. And the state requires that we stay above a 3% fund balance, and the board desires that we keep it at 5%, which is still probably not healthy enough. But like I said earlier, they're willing to sacrifice some below 5% on the progress we've made to try and create a little bit more equity at the moment.
My head tells me you're saying fund balance, but I keep hearing fund balance instead of fund balance. Just putting
maybe
it
I have a speech impediment. I don't know.
Maybe, yeah. It's just, yeah. But I keep hearing fun.
Well, you're the comedian, so we'll keep having fun.
Chad,
Yes, ma'am.
Chad, my biggest concern is, I know that, we talked to Diane way back in the beginning of this, and back when we were at 2.5%, and she said she was going to focus at some point on the teachers that had lost the jump, because we actually lost $6,500 in that game. And I don't want to beat a dead horse, but that is for the rest of your life. And that is loyalty to Lake County. So, at some point we need to do something for those teachers that are at the top, because it is an onerous task when you're doing know how you could even get them done, but we stay late. It's impossible to get everything done. I mean, to plan, to do lesson plans, and then to work with our small groups after school with the kids that are having trouble, and we're not getting compensated. This is volunteer work because I care about my kids. But there's just so many things that we have to do now, and we don't really have planning that much. It's just not. There's just no time. Everybody's in a rush. And with COVID, it's
Terry, you're breaking up. We can't understand you.
even worse.
I think I've got the gist of what you're saying. And I'll just, on behalf of the superintendent, I'll tell you. I mean,
hear any of
You're breaking up,
what I
Terry.
said?
I got part of that. The part I heard was,
Okay.
the superintendent, a while back. Well, I can tell you the superintendent and the board and everyone appreciates, teachers and the work that they're putting in. But it keeps being said, like, eventually we've got to do something. Eventually we've got to do something. Well, if the legislature and the governor decide they're going to give us $7.2 million, and you guys call that state money, whatever, once it hits the district, they've tied our hands on how it's supposed to be spent. And that if that's how they're getting money to you guys, then we don't have a whole lot of choice over that. So rather than putting it in the BSA and allowing us to, honor this process and bargain with you guys to where we would have some flexibility to push more towards the top in a year where perhaps performance pay, we don't exactly have to abide by that, it would have been perfect. But unfortunately, that's not how they funded us, and that's not how they're getting money to teachers. So I trust me, we understand exactly what you guys' perspective is, but unless we have the additional funding provided to us to address the issue, then we can address it. We know the sentiment.
Maybe we can still look at something though. Like you said, the placement schedule was 0 through 12. So even if we gave and started at $100 or something, I don't know, I'm just bringing it up. Is there anything that you can go back and ask them for those 13 and above, in other words, to give them something to say, here, this is a supplement for you because you have stayed with Lake County for 13 and more years type idea, so that we can say that there is something that we are giving to those experienced teachers that did not get a big raise, whatever. That would be one comment. The other would be, the other thing that teachers always want is they want their time. So is there a way that we can go back and look at the plan times so that teachers can have their individual plan times? And that might be something, yes, I know it's for everybody and not really individual in that case for veterans or anybody else. But we continue to keep using the plan times for whatever. So is there a way then that we could possibly come back and make sure that we have more plan times, not the two? I don't know. That would be one comment I would make, because plan time is dear to teachers and they don't have enough. And administrators and other people, they think that, the PLCs and the collaborative plan and the whatever that they want to call them are wonderful. But a lot of times, especially elementary, been there, done that, teachers will they'll plan together on their own if they want to. And it's not a mandated thing that they plan together. So I don't know. I'm just putting it out there that is there a way that we can, because that would be a big thing for teachers to say, I'm going to have my plan time and it's not going to be taken away.
Or I'm thinking too, I noticed Guido's in the room. I know some systems have less evaluations for their experienced teachers. It may not even have to be once each semester, maybe once every other year for an experienced teacher who's shown credibility and dedication. Is that even something possible, Guido?
We've already chosen to be at the bare minimum for evaluations for teachers now, especially ones on the more experienced end of the scale. So that's something we're already doing. And you've got to be careful if you start restricting some of the ones from the beginning side of the world, because that lessens opportunities and makes those evaluations way more in singularity than they would if they have one additional. But your most veteran teachers are currently they're required to be assessed annually, and we're at the minimum for that now.
Aren't we doing 2 a
Pat,
year?
is that a state mandate or is that district mandate?
That's a statute. That's a state. Mhm.
Okay.
And back to Kathy's initial comment about those people kind of that are beyond that step 12, you're basically looking at those 900 folks that were in the range of roughly 43,800 to that 50,870 around there. Those are the people that took up that 1%, the 1.5% group, those 900, roughly 920 people. Those are the folks we're trying to bump up a little bit and get a little something to get them to that 2%. So you've got your people that were 51,000 and above that got anywhere from $1,000 to around 1,375 raise to their base salary this year. And then your 1.5% people got anywhere from about a 700 to 760 raise. And then that 1% group got around 450 to 475. So you would basically be pushing those other two up. Your people at the top would still, by nature, because it's based on a percentage at 2%, would overall receive more of a dollar amount, but you would at least offer the same percentage by accepting our proposal to those 900 that were there in the middle. From a planning perspective, I think we're having to relook at how we're doing everything. Obviously, this year, I've got feedback some feedback on the things we discussed the other day on block schedule and where we go from there. There is no desire of the superintendent to continue down that path next year, and we'll be looking at things. I think that's where we can ever get to our full book. We have to look at planning and see if there's some adjustments that can be made. I can tell you, if you're looking for PLCs and collaborative planning to absolutely go away, probably not going to happen under the philosophy of this administration. However, that's not to say we can't talk about it and look and see where we can adjust for the better, and try and improve things.
Can I ask a question? Did I hear you say that block scheduling for next year is going away?
She does not, the superintendent does not have a strong desire to continue down that path. I don't want to go much beyond that, because it was a brief conversation, but I think she's looking forward to getting things back to normal. And one of the strongest parts of that is get things back to normal for teachers also. So.
But block scheduling has helped our students tremendously, because with 7 classes in high school and a lot of them pushing for AP, it was way too much stress. And if we're going to concentrate a lot on their mental health, leaving it at the block schedule would definitely help the students' mental health without so much stress.
A traditional block schedule.
I think it helps some, and then it's a detriment to others. And that's why I don't want to say a solid decision has been made on that. I can tell you my initial brief conversation with her this week was that from the feedback that she has gotten, there was not a strong desire to continue on the same path that we've been on this year. But of course, there's a board that needs to weigh in on that. You guys need to weigh in on that. Our other stakeholders need to weigh in on that. So, but I definitely see a different set of circumstances for next year, regardless. It would not look exactly like this, I would presume. So we're going to have to, so Kathy, getting back to your question or your statement, I don't think we're going, we won't be going back to the same circumstances, but it'll be a time to take a good look at what we're doing.
Well, we can definitely go back to also, members, and we can just ask them. I mean, if there's other ways that we can, help situations and whatever, I mean, that would be easy enough to do. But, um, you know, it's just like you said, it's kind of hard to come up with something that's going to be not necessarily compensation, but yet it's going to be something that would help them, like compensation would, to help them. And that's why I said the planning. But it's the first thing that kind of comes to mind when you think about it. But maybe there is something else. I'm not, right now, it's not coming to me.
Well, Kathy,
The other
Kathy, the
component
rosters are killing
is
the additional rosters.
The other component is that we're Can you hear me on this?
Terry, we can't hear you.
Do I need to go outside?
Yeah.
Can I go outside?
It might
I'll
work.
go outside.
Anyway, Kathy, what I was saying, those additional rosters we have right now, who would have ever thought that something like an additional roster would be so brutal? I have never worked so hard in my life as a teacher. 21 years I've been in Lake County. It's been brutal. So I appreciate the superintendent not wanting to stick with this block schedule. I've got to agree with Ms. Beckett about the block schedule has its place. It's good. This block schedule is not traditional. Yeah, but this one, no.
Yeah.
So,
Well, those are going to be larger conversations outside of probably this venue, but we'll still have issues from this venue also. But there's got to be much more input and much greater group of stakeholders involved in those decisions.
The crazy thing that I was going to say, Chad, was there's more and more being locked in teachers. And I'm not talking about just work in the classroom. I mean, I'll do anything for my kids. But the issue is we have reading endorsement. We're going to have ESE. We're going to have all these different trainings that the state is throwing down at us, and they're saying get it done within a minimal amount of time or go take a test. And that's at our expense. So there are things like that just continue to add pressure to everyone's day.
I agree. They've continued with mandates, and that's why we've tried to embed some things and help where we can, as far as funding some of that, and then embedding some of the reading stuff and pleading to the state for some relief on those types of things. So no, I get it. They're definitely asking for more and more.
But the piece that I don't understand is if you have a certificate that doesn't expire for 5 years, why do you have to do all this crazy stuff when you have a certificate? I should have to do it after that certificate expires, not now, right this minute.
Yeah, that would probably make sense.
I've got an elderly mother that's 92, and that's a full-time job. That's personal. It's not dealing with children and having to go to games anymore and all of that. But I've reared 4 children and they're pretty good. So everything's going well in that department. But I do have to take care of my mother.
So moving back towards the proposal that you guys before caucus. So I hear you want to do something more for your experienced teachers. We know that.
I think the proposal's good, but I don't think that should be everything. But we can agree with the proposal, but we would like to see more being done for our experienced teachers.
So if and that's why I labeled it as an addendum to the MOU. That will be something we could incorporate into the MOU. And as we continue to bargain, we can keep that in mind, the sentiment of and the idea of the longevity as we continue moving forward. What about is the insurance? I would imagine that is something that's acceptable.
No changes?
Yeah.
I think that would be acceptable at this point. Does anybody else?
Yeah, we liked hearing that yesterday.
And then am I okay to update the critical shortage and Title I MOU for you guys?
Well, that's what we've had.
On that critical shortage. On that critical shortage area, are they the same as last year?
They are.
Has anyone been added or deleted?
No, they haven't. And we talked about we would go in and do some work on looking at that. And then, of course, that's kind of in one of those areas that got turned on its ear. So I think it's something we continue to focus on. But as of right now, I would recommend staying the course. So am I correct in saying that you guys accept the proposal and we will continue to bargain and for compensation? I mean, I can't tell you, I just being totally transparent, and until we see how some of the FTE shakes out and the posturing of the legislature, how that starts to flush out, we're probably not going to see or have a good idea until the close of session, the impact they're going to have on us.
And I know I've made this comment before, and I know I'm probably preaching to the choir here, but continually relying on the state legislature to fund increases in teacher salaries is kind of a fool's errand. That until we as a school district make a commitment, and whether that be through a millage or budget actual raises, we really have to stop relying strictly on legislature and for teacher raises. We need to be a little more proactive. And I know there's nothing that this group can do about that, and I've made that comment before to deaf ears.
I don't think it's the deaf ears. I mean, I know you say we can't rely on the state. That's where our funding comes from for operational expenditures. So that's what we've got. And
I know when Senator Mumford was a superintendent, he made some major construction changes to his school district. I know other school districts have made some adjustments in the way they budget and some of their overhead. So, but that's beside the point.
I think all districts do that through the years. There's restructuring and adjustments that are made. If you look at the possibility of restructuring anything in this district at this point, at some point you're going to have an impact on the quality of service of education you're providing to your students and your community. And I'm not saying that we don't need to keep looking at things, because we are. Just like I run my departments, I constantly look at my departments. What can I do the same with less? I mean, that's the lens that we're constantly looking through from a district level. But just like you guys have more and more piled on at the school site, we have more and more piled on to try and answer the call to the state also. So I agree. We constantly have to be looking for ways to restructure to save money. But unfortunately, that usually comes at a cost to the quality of service, and it's a small amount of money that would make little to no impact on anyone's salary in any position in the district. So we're charged to take what we get for operational from the state where we're funded from, and we make those decisions at the local level. And we have 5,000 employees that we have to look out for and try and keep, the boat afloat and everything chugging while providing an improved service, because it's not enough to continue, the status quo level of education we're giving kids. We're always looking to improve that also, right? So that's the challenge we face. But when I just want to reiterate, it doesn't fall on deaf ears. Your board is very aware, and they're a very sharp group when it comes to, looking at the resources we have and making sure that the administration they put in charge are handling them adequately and responsibly. So we'll continue with open eyes to make sure that we're doing the best job we can. But when we say we can't depend on the state, that's where our money comes from. So if we were not depending on the state, that $7.2 million you guys just got wouldn't have been there. So should I be preparing and moving forward for these adjustments to be made on the proposal from today?
Do I hear anything from anybody? Team? Then it's yeah, make your adjustments.
Okay. And before we I know we've been talking, it's not necessarily a bargaining piece, but it's more of a piece where you and I've talked about, okay, what's our vision and how are we moving forward? So I think before we set another meeting time, perhaps we can talk more off the table, just procedurally and timeline and things like that, to set up some more dates. Does that sound okay to you?
That's acceptable to me, yeah.
Okay. Okay, well, we'll move in that direction. And if there is nothing else, are we good to sign off?
Yeah,
Okay.
I believe so, unless somebody else something for the good of the order.
Okay, guys. Well,
thank you much, Chad.
Thank you very much. And thank you to all of you inside of this room and outside. I know we get to talk about a lot in here, but we appreciate what everybody's doing within their scope of their day. So, okay, guys, it's 5:41 on December 3rd, 2020, and this closes out LCEA Lake County Schools bargaining.